Welcome to My Strategic Plan Strategy Huddle on Customer Connection.
Here about the customer connection and being able to talk with Michelle and Tammy. You're in beautiful downtown Colorado Springs. Why don't you talk to us about customers?
Okay, great. Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about the focus and the consistency that needs to be maintained to achieve growth. I think a lot of times when you're reaching out to customers, if you don't have structure in the way that you're collecting feedback from them, you're apt to be more reactive. You're apt to not really have a system in place that takes that customer feedback and makes it work for the organization. So it's an important thing to go ahead and get customer feedback, of course, but you need to structure it further than that, and that's what we do through our assessment processes when we're developing strategic plans for companies. But, you know, doing a SWOT assessment, for example, at the beginning of the strategic planning process is an absolute necessity, but taking that further, the continuation of assessments throughout the strategic plan's life is really a vital part of it, and to focus those assessments and make them strategically relevant helps not only give some organizational management insight into your customer data, it also can work to keep your strategies relevant. So if we can go to the next slide. What we have here is our approach to overcoming that big hurdle and making sure that strategic plans stay relevant over the lifespan of that plan. And everyone knows that strategic plans do not operate in a vacuum. And they're long documents. You've got 5 years to try to execute this thing. And when you start off, no one has a crystal ball. They don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. So the importance of execution in the process is a huge factor, of course. The regular strategy reviews, the reporting process, making sure that those are clearly defined at the beginning of the strategic plan is important. But how do you get outside of that strategic plan stagnation? How do you do that? Well, one very great tool for that, in our opinion, is utilizing the Net Promoter Score concept. And this is a way to go ahead and get that information from customers and even internally from your staff for employee engagement to get their insights, which can be super effective in making sure that you know along the way of that strategic plan's lifespan what your organization's strengths are, where those weaknesses seem to start arising, and how to provide triage to those weaknesses or also to enhance your strengths. So let's talk here a little bit about the Net Promoter Score. There's a main question that is asked on this survey process, and it's how likely would you recommend your company to a friend or colleague. So this takes the whole concept of satisfaction and sort of bumps it up into a level of loyalty. And based on the responses, the respondents can be put into categories. If they go ahead and rate you high, they are your promoters. If they're in the mid-gray areas, they're your passively satisfied customers. And if they rate you 6 or below, they are detractors. And you can see by the words that are used how valuable that can be from an organizational management perspective. That based on the different percentages, if you have a large amount of detractors in your survey responses, then you know you need to work on something. You need to figure out what's going on, because these are the people that can spread bad word of mouth, and it's a very damaging thing. Where on the flip side, those promoters on the other end, they are your good word of mouth people, and there's a lot of data that supports that word of mouth is the most effective way to market and advertise your service. So if you've got those promoters out there singing, praises about your company, that's where your growth is. So you want to make sure that, those people that are rating you 9 or 10 to the question above are the ones that you nurture. Those passively satisfied people in the middle, those customers, they offer a lot of insight. They are the people that are sitting on the fence. They can be very vulnerable to competitive offers. because they're not completely satisfied up to the promoter level, which is really loyalty. And, you know, with just a few slips, they can easily become detractors. So that's the NPS question, and we really like it. But when we go ahead and do these assessments using NPS, we take it a bit further because we want more insight on why people are rating us a certain rating when answering this question, which if we'll go ahead and get to the next slide, this is something that we do. Since we've got the customer's attention, we go ahead and we think that, you know, developing questions to give us insight on what is actually influencing those loyalty levels is something that it's an opportunity, and this is how we like to structure it to make it relevant towards the strategic plan or strategic goals of any organization. This is actually based on the Balanced Scorecard concept, which we won't go into the Balanced Scorecard here, but it is on our MyStrategicPlan.com under references. There's a whole section on Balanced Scorecard and its merits. But for our purposes here, we'd like to focus on how questions developed from scorecard categories help create insight into keeping the strategic decisions of an organization relevant. So you can see that we've got these management categories over in the far left, starting at the bottom. The organizational management for innovation and learning, internal operations, for customer experiences, and we don't put the financial category of the Balanced Scorecard in here because that's just more of an outcome type of metric. But what you can see here is that if you go ahead and take any, you know, given organization strategic goals, perhaps they would fall into these types of statements. Now, when we go ahead and assess and do these outreach surveys with our internal and external stakeholders, if we can develop questions that are in alignment with these Balanced Scorecard categories, then we've got something that management can sink their teeth into based on the kind of feedback that we receive in the categories. So if, for example, questions in the customer category are all trending low, then that gives the management some insight into organizationally where they need to put focus. Now, the good thing about aligning this with strategic goals is that it helps keep your strategic plan relevant. With the data that you receive in these categories, you can align all the execution process, those meetings, those reports. You can pull in these questions and really find relevance in the assessments and making sure that what is happening externally with the customers is always being injected into the strategic execution process. And that is a crucial key in making sure the strategic plans stay relevant. It is the customer that we're focusing on. It is their insight when we're doing those external assessments, but we can also do these internally for employee engagement. So you make sure that your workforce is performing to the degree that they should perform, not only to satisfy the principles of a Balanced Scorecard, but also to make sure that the fundamentals of the strategic plan have the champions that you might need internally to be able to reach those strategic objectives and goals and such. So this assessment process, one of the most critical things about it, though, is just like strategic execution, the assessment process needs to be consistent. It needs to be regular. That is the only way that you're going to be able to get data that is robust enough that you can really start making solid organizational decisions upon. So this chart is just our way to communicate that to you all, and it's something that it accomplishes a few things. It drives data that is useful from the organizational management perspective. This data then serves as a gauge that can help make strategic decisions relevant. And when combined with a consistent strategic execution method, these regular assessments help keep your plan agile. So that's the driving points we want to talk about here on this slide when it pertains to those driving questions to develop along with the NPS. They also give you insight with why people are scoring you in the certain categories of the Net Promoter Score. And we do a lot of post-data analysis that we can correlate the tendency of maybe any one of these questions and how closely they are tied in with the NPS number. So that's what you can do with data as it develops and becomes robust. There's just a multitude of insights that you can get from really going in and analyzing the data. So it's very important to have that routine consistency when you're doing these assessments. Not only for making the strategic plan stay agile, but for giving you, insight that you can dive into later that has strategic validity. So let's go ahead and get to how we communicate this to our clients. This is our online dashboard that we use to aggregate all the data as it comes in. The process is that we go ahead and we send surveys out for our clients, usually every week. And with the data, this program aggregates it. And you can see how the benchmarking starts to lay out, where any given organization, if they have several different locations around the nation, if they are broken down into regions or divisions or whatever, you can see how our bar graph here helps track that. So say if we're dealing with, how the company's branches might be doing in a certain city. If you look at the yellow bar, you see in this specific instance in Seattle, this mock company would be performing low according to the benchmarks of the company has established the data at the state level, the region level, the division level, and the corporate level. So you can see here that we have a system for calculating the NPS, which is this gauge that you see in the upper left. And then we have all sorts of variances at the bottom. This variance chart helps whoever is looking at this determine how far off in the corporate average that these entities, the region, the division, the state, and the city, might be off from the benchmark that has been created by the data. So this is a very, very useful tool in being able to take everything that I just talked about in the last two slides and make it something that is actionable. And this is why we actually called Michelle McClarney of Spartan Staffing into this process and into this presentation. Spartan Staffing is a company based out of South Carolina with 50 locations nationwide. And we worked with Michelle for a couple of years. And recently we relaunched their customer loyalty program this summer after the organization had acquired another staffing company. We think that Michelle can give us some excellent insight on how Spartan management views this driver data and NPS data and uses it as a tool in helping Spartan stay on track strategically. So if we could go ahead and make sure that Michelle is unmuted. Michelle, if you'd like to give your insight on how Spartan uses this to stay strategically relevant and help with your organizational management, it would be excellent to hear your opinion because I know that you guys really work this program well.
Thanks, Tammy. Spartan Staffing is actually part of a company with multiple brands, and it's True Blue. One of our strategic objectives is to be the service leader and grow fast in the market. Part of that objective is to capture and cultivate customer loyalty. We're using M3 to assist us in this and using the dashboard like the one, similar to the one that's shown on the screen now, to really look at our promoters of our company and the passives and detractors to find out where we can develop initiatives around the different categories and take those passives and move them into promoters, or take the detractors and move them through the other two categories. With knowing where we fall on our NPS score, we're taking 7 driving questions that are based on like the skill of our assignment employees that we assign to different jobs. We're looking at motivation of those assignment employees, and we're looking at basically 3 questions that have to do with our assignment employees place. And we're looking at 3 questions that related to the branch staff who are communicating and sending assignment employees out to the different customers. And then we're looking at another driving question that has to do with partnership. And based on the responses and the average scores and the feedback that we get from our customers, we are looking at a variety of things. You know, if it has to do with our skills of our employees, is our knowledge of what our customer wants in the branches, or is it that we need to do a better job interviewing our employees? If it's something related to the 3 questions related to our branch staff, we're looking at what we can do better, what additional training opportunities we can have. Because we know that if we can improve all of these different driving categories, it's going to lead to them to see us as a valuable long-term partner, which then in turn is going to help us to create additional loyalty and be able to get the referrals from them. But based on all of the information that we find out from our customers, we've got to not only read it and listen to it, but we've got to take action. And we've got to communicate with our customers about service improvements that we're putting in place or initiatives that we have. And we've got to take advantage and ask those people that say that they're willing to refer Spartan to a friend or a colleague and ask them for that lead to help us grow and be a service leader for our industry. And capturing and cultivating those loyal customers is what leads to all of our profitable growth. And I really think that this program that Cammie and Howard have helped put together for us has really helped to get our feet on the ground running, to make service improvements where our customers have said we needed to, because it's the voice of your customer that's providing the responses to you. And it's really been very valuable for us since we've implemented this program. And we've seen our response rates with lots of communication from our branches and senior management to our customers go from, I think, Cammie, was it 11% in Q4 to 30% now?
That's right.
So, I mean, we've really taken a hold of this. And it's not only within our Spartan staffing, but the other brands within True Blue are also either have implemented or are implementing customer loyalty programs such as this one.
Michelle, how does it help you drive organizational decision as far as the management goes of your value proposition to your customers?
Well, we really look at, you know, it as a whole, you know, the service of the employees, the service of the staff to the customers. And, you know, we have what we call a Spartan 360 approach to things, where we are looking to communicate and discover with our prospects and our customers, and we're asking questions about what they need. Then we have a precision of our hiring process and meeting our customer requirements, and we have a compliance measurement too. This is our compliance measurement that we're using to look at our strategies and see really, you know, do we need to create new websites to benefit our customers? Do we need to promote, do some new internal processes? Do we need to look at a wide variety of things? And, you know, right now we're really, because we've just relaunched it within the last couple of quarters, we're getting ready to go through some analysis with you guys, and I think after we go through that quarterly analysis, we'll be able to really look at some initiatives to sustain the growth of our company going forward.
Great. Yeah, that's part of, you know, the ability to stay strategically relevant to the plan. Your plan is to be able to do this, take that data as it aggregates over a long period of time, for this example, a quarterly period of time, and then use that data to make sure that your strategic direction is on track. And if it's not on track, this is, we say it all the time, strategic plans need to be able to live and breathe. And this is the kind of data that helps you determine what needs to be shifted, if anything, within your strategic plan. What needs to be created to be able to perhaps provide some triage to any type of weakness or threat that might be, encroaching upon an organization. And also to enhance the strengths and make sure that when you do find things that work through this data of, taking regular assessments, that you make sure that best practices are shared. It's not best practices that come from some textbook. It's best practices as you see them rolling out almost in real time through a regular assessment process. And this is what this dashboard is communicating, and that is what we collect through using NPS and the driver questions that we develop. So let's just get to some summary action points because we only do have an hour. We can talk about this forever because it's just good stuff. But here's some actions for y'all. Assess the process that you may have in place that can alert you to any emerging weaknesses as well as spotlight your strengths. Do you have a process, number one? But, assess the ones that you have, and are they effective? Consider the importance of aligning any customer or staff survey effort with principles of the Balanced Scorecard. Thereby you bring strategic relevance to your data. Actively collect the data with consistency and reference it regularly to keep your strategic efforts relevant. And when the data drives it, create those best practices and share it with other business units, which is great also just to bust the silo effect that a lot of companies that have multiple locations or big, large departments. It's this data is just great. You can start to talk to each other at a different level instead of just being the tendency to be myopic within your own realm. So those are the key points. I definitely want to ask Howard for your input on what you see as far as NPS and how those driver questions help the strategic plan stay relevant and get us to where we all want to be, into that growth realm. So Howard, do you want to go ahead and make any comments?
I've got one thought, and then Ryan's telling me here there was a couple questions that came in for Michelle, so I think he might want to bring a question to Michelle.
We can do that first. We had a question typed in at the chat box via participant, and it was said, I'll just read it. It says, thank you for your insights, Michelle. How long does it take to develop a program like you did? Do you feel the investment was worthwhile? Was it worth the effort? And I'll go ahead and unmute you and turn it over to you, Michelle. There we go.
Definitely feel it was worth it. I think Howard and a team of us spent about 3 to 6 months developing the program and the questions and the dashboard when we originally launched it in 2008. And then last year we spent another 3 months relaunching it to the company again because we did a huge acquisition and merger of 2 brands. And I think it's paying for itself. And it's been very valuable insight for us to learn what our customers truly feel about the services we provide, the assignment employees that we provide. We've been able to make some incremental improvements.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate your feedback there to the question. So that was the one question that we had on the chat box. Now I'll turn it back over to Howard.
Thanks, Michelle. We're going to appreciate that plug. We'll email Starbucks double latte skinny one over to you this morning. The one point I think that I'd like to drive from a strategic standpoint, and Michelle really and her team really work on this so dramatically, is the fact that understanding our promoters is what drives very good top line and bottom line revenue. The thought behind the NPS program is that our promoters are folks that are going to hang with us. As Cammie said, that they're very loyal. They'll take a few bounces with us. They're more profitable customers. We don't have to be giving them all kinds of extra goodies. They're in there for the long time for the value. So from a strategic standpoint, the investment that Spartan has made in understanding their customers, and by the way, they get it real well. Their NPS score is extremely high. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's pushing in the 50 number area, and the average in the United States right now for an organization in the industrial sector is somewhere around 5. So the Spartan team really gets it. They've got a lot of promoters, and the promoters then drive good top line as well as higher bottom line revenue. And particularly we need this, and then we're seeing a lot of our research. You really need to understand the customers in these turbulent times, which